Well, welcome back. In that last video about the Samsung NX500, which I'm also shooting with today, by the way, I compared it to a 6K Blackmagic camera, which I accidentally called an E2-F6, which is actually this camera made by a company called Zcam. The reason I confuse them is because I bought the Blackmagic and the Zcam at the same time, and I just kept confusing the names and getting it mixed up, so sorry about that. I didn't get the name right, but the test still holds. Side by side, I think the NX500 looked better than the 6K Blackmagic. These are both 6K cameras, and the 6K is a big deal, just like 4K when it came out, and that's kind of what this video is about. Is 6K really necessary? Do we really need it? So today, I'm going to compare the Blackmagic 6K camera with the Zcam E2-F6. These are considered compact cinema cameras. Now, I know you're going to say, why did you even get these? Because you don't shoot in 4K, Marcus. You keep saying that. No, I don't. I don't shoot in 4K, except for one necessary thing that I need, and that is when I shoot kitchen videos, I have a camera way up high, 8 feet above the countertop, looking down, and I need to show the whole countertop, and then when I'm editing, I need to be able to zoom in on a tomato, and for that, I need a really high resolution, at least 4K, 6K is even better. Hell, if I had 12K, that'd be great. I need something lightweight and small that I can hang up on a boom arm that doesn't weigh a lot, that I can just turn on and I can just let it run at maximum resolution for an hour without overheating. I know you're going to say, well, can't you just use a Canon or Sony full-frame DSLR style camera? They're probably not going to run at whatever it is, 6K or 4K nonstop for an hour without shutting down or overheating. That's what these things are for. Cinema cameras are made to run for a long time without overheating, without shutting down. They have no time limit and they usually don't overheat. So that's why I got these. But I'm not happy with them, and I'm going to compare them. This is a real world situation. I'm not going to tell you all this fluff that everybody else says is the greatest thing in the world. I'm going to give you the Marcus view of this. So first of all, the Blackmagic camera. The company that makes this camera is called Blackmagic, and this camera is called a BMPCC6K. Tell me that doesn't sound like something from Russia.
This is Russian pocket camera. In Russia, we have big pockets, not useless small American pockets, which are just for show. No, Russia, we have real pockets.
The name is irritating. It's not easy to remember. So that's why I'm not going to use that camera. I got this one first. I got it because it's small, which it is, and I thought it was going to be lightweight. Both of these cameras, by the way, have a Canon EF mount, which is great because I have great Canon lenses. So you don't have to buy special lenses, no PL mount or anything like that. All right, so I know that the image quality hitting the center is going to be good. The Zcam E2-F6 is a full frame sensor, so I thought, wow, that's going to be great resolution. 6K with a full frame sensor. I'm going to be able to zoom in like a microscope on that thing. The Blackmagic is a 6K, but it's a Super 35 sensor, which is basically a fancy, expensive way of saying APS-C. They just call it Super 35, so you pay more money. But anyway, let's get on to the Zcam. You can do SDI, HDMI, all kinds of links to control it remotely, variable frame rate. You can power these things with a D-tap. The Zcam can shoot 6K at 60 frames per second, which is pretty amazing. It can also shoot 10-bit 422, and if you're shooting in RAW, it can shoot 12-bit in RAW, and it has its own RAW. This is called Z-RAW. I never use RAW. I'll make a whole video about that. If you're outputting it to a monitor, an outside recorder, an SSD, a Ninja, Shogun, or something like that, it'll only do 4K when you output it. It can still be 60 frames per second and still be 10-bit 422. I'm rattling off specs and numbers, which irritates me because I really don't care about that stuff. The 60 frames per second I like, but all that other stuff, the RAW, the 10-bit, the 422, you know what? It really doesn't matter to me because if you know what you're doing, you can make it look great. Without any of that, I'll make a whole video about that. Let's not get into that right now. And the only way you're going to be able to record 6K with this thing is if you use one of these. This is a CFast memory card. This is a terabyte and it costs $1,000. And this is the only way you're going to be able to record 6K with this camera. You cannot record externally onto an SSD or anything else like that in 6K. It only records internally onto a CFast card, and CFast cards are not cheap. This is not a normal compact flash card. This is a new high-speed CFast card. And again, a half-hour video will take up most of this card. This one also uses CFast, but it also has an SD slot if you wanted to use a lower resolution like ProRes shooting 1080p or 4K. Then you can use a SD card with this thing. It has screws all over over the place. You can bolt all kinds of things to it. And this kind of reminds me of, and I know what some of you are going to say, you say, well, why don't you just get the Sigma FP? Because it's full frame and it's small and it's light. Well, that's kind of like this. The Sigma FP and this camera, the Zcam, are basically just a sensor in a box with a lens mount. That's it. If you want to have anything else, you need to bolt it to this. You want a monitor, you need to see what you're doing, you have to bolt it to this. You want some kind of functionality, handles, grips, audio inputs, all that stuff has to be bolted to this camera. So by the time you're done, you've got this big contraption, which is bigger than a normal cinema camera. Anyway, it uses a normal NP battery on the back, which is great. It has Ethernet, so you can just plug it right into your computer. You can run it off battery or house power. You just push the red button to start. This is the screen. The screen is smaller than a postage stamp. Trying to see anything on this is ridiculous. That's the first frustrating thing about it. So you have to bolt a big monitor on top of it to see what you're doing. And this thing is not light. This is a heavy camera. It's like solid steel. This thing is like a brick. So this is not a lightweight camera. The Blackmagic is considerably lighter than the Zcam, which is kind of deceiving when you look at them. I thought this was going to be just as heavy. This is a really lightweight plastic camera. It's like a tourist Japanese camera plastic thing. But I like lightweight plastic things, so I don't mind the plasticness and the lightweight at all. The thing I like about the Blackmagic, it's got this big giant screen on the back, which is great. It's almost the same size of a screen as those monitors you stick on top, you know, the aftermarket ones. The problem is the monitor on this thing isn't really that great of a monitor. It's high contrast. You're looking at the colors on the back of the screen, you go, ew, that's what I'm going to get. The image you're going to get, the final video, is actually a lot better than what you see on the screen. So even though it's got this huge screen on the back, you still have to put a really good quality monitor like a Ninja or whatever on top of this thing to really see what you're getting. The thing I like, first of all, I'm going back and forth here. The thing I hate the most about the Zcam, two things I hate the most is the Zcam, the lens mount is so frustrating to you. Like on the Blackmagic, you got a normal lens mount. You put the lens on, you turn it a bit and it's locked and it's done. On the Zcam, you got to hold the lens onto the camera, and while you're holding it with one hand, you have to turn this ring with the other hand and try to lock it into place, and it's not as easy as it sounds. It is not fun. It's not easy, and mounting a lens to this is not a fast click, click, click thing done in like 3 seconds. It's really old school and frustrating, so I don't like that. The thing I don't like about the Blackmagic is the dangly rubber plastic things that, and the power cord, once you stick it in, it's really hard to get it out, and dangly things are in the way. Some people cut these things off, but that lowers the value of if you try to resell it. Anyway, that's just the thing I like. Now this camera, the color is better, but it's still nowhere near as nice as the Sony, even the A7C that I have, or my Samsung cameras. The color, everybody says this is such a great camera. The reason it's so great, I think, is because it's so easy to use. Everything you can do everything on the touch screen, every function you'd ever want, the f-stop, the shutter speed, the ISO, everything is instantly accessible. It's one of the most best thought out functionalities on a touch screen. It's so easy to use. This is actually fun to use. And that's a big deal for me. The fun factor is probably the most important thing about a camera for me. The Blackmagic has better skin tones than the Zcam, but the colors are kind of dull. And boosting saturation and trying to fiddle with it in post really doesn't help it that much. You need to be a color grading genius to really get the colors to look great on this camera. It's not a take it out of the box, use it right away, and it looks perfect kind of camera. You need to know what you're doing. The Zcam, the colors look a little bit on a yellow-green side, which is not really good for skin tones. It has a strange color science that's not easy to adjust or fix. Here's the Blackmagic. Look at the berries down in the corner here. Notice how it looks like nice little round balls with the Blackmagic. Look how it looks with the Zcam. Even though it's a 1-inch sensor, it looks like it's using some funky compression, or it cheats a little bit. When you zoom in really close, you can see the difference there. Even though the Blackmagic is only a Super 35/APS-C sensor, the Blackmagic seems to hold up better under scrutiny. The thing that blows these two away in my test, in my opinion, is the Sony full frame, which is only 4K, not even 6K. Here's the Zcam, here's the Blackmagic, and here's the Sony A7C. Look at that. The Sony's just blows these other two away. The skin colors are a bit on the red side, but right out of the camera, the Sony full frame stuff looks amazing. It's ready to use right out of the camera. No grading, no logs, no LUTs, no RAW. It's just beautiful. No adjusting needed. Sony 4K is sharper, in my opinion, than the Blackmagic 6K and the Zcam 6K. Now, you can get nice stuff from the Zcam and the Blackmagic, but you got to know what you're doing. There's a learning curve. It's not like take it out of the box and right away it's perfect. You got to know what you're doing. Like I said, you got to know a little bit about color science. And for most people, including me, I don't want to have to learn every time I get a new thing. I got to learn how to, it's just, I want to just have something nice. You click a button and it works. You know, I like simplicity. I like easy to use. I want the factory people have figured it out, not have me figure out how to make it look good. So there is a learning curve to these two cameras. The Blackmagic has no stabilization. It's only 6K when you shoot in RAW. The batteries last 3 minutes. Yeah, you can hook it into 110 volts and just run it off house power, which is pretty much what you're going to have to do if you're shooting anything more than 10 minutes long. It can shoot 120 frames, but it's highly cropped. The autofocus is bad with both of these. These are cinema cameras. True professionals do not use autofocus. That's what they say, right? I mean, if you really want to be a professional, you don't use autofocus. So that's, I guess they didn't put a lot of effort in that. So forget about autofocus on these cameras. It sucks. And another thing that's terrible with the Zcam is the white balance. I tried forget. And the white balance with the Blackmagic, it's all right. It's better than the Zcam, but it's still nowhere as good of a white balance as with the Sony or the Samsung or even the Panasonics. But it's got the easiest way to set white balance of any camera. I wish all cameras were this easy to use. And it's kind of weird. They call this a pocket camera. I don't know why, but in the way it's laid out, I mean, I can understand why, because they have the big screen on the back and it gives you a grip to hold on to, and everybody loves to use the SLR style cameras nowadays. So they just said, well, we might as well make it look like an SLR. It's just, I don't know. It's not, you know how when you're dating someone, you know right away, this is going to work or it's not. I really tried with both of these. I just don't click with them. They're just not for me. So my solution for the kitchen situation is not to use one of these things. It is having two of my NX500s up there on a pole, side by side. They're really lightweight. One of them's got a wide angle lens and one of them's got a telephoto lens. Those things are really, really sharp. They don't weigh anything. That way I get the best of both worlds. The thing about using a big 6K and then trying to crop in and editing, that's like trying to get a handyman to do both the plumbing and the electrical and not doing a really good job at either of them. Whereas sometimes it's better to just get an electrician to do the electrical stuff and a plumber to do the plumbing stuff instead of one guy to try to do it all and do a half-assed job on everything. These things, there isn't something that can just do everything. It's better to get a specific thing for each thing. That's why prime lenses are better than zoom lenses. That's why having two small 1080p's are better than having one 4K or 6K and then trying to make it do the work of both. The answer to good photography is not always resolution. The answer is good lighting, good white balance, good composition, good color, good storytelling. That's more important than having really high resolution and try to make it be the jack of all trades for what you're doing. Sometimes, yeah, you can only afford one camera, but even in Hollywood, they sometimes do the wide shot and then they cut and then they redo the shot with a closer shot. Oh, by the way, the prices, the Blackmagic BMPCC6K is $2,000, which is actually not a bad price for what it is. The Zcam is like $4,500. You could buy two of these for one of these, and I'd rather get two of these than one of these. Now, I could use a Sony full frame like my A7C up on the boom pole because it's small and it's lightweight and it doesn't seem to overheat like the previous Sonys do, but it is up there for an hour and I can't get to it and I can't tell if it's running or not. I need to trust it, and running it at 4K for an hour without knowing if it's shut off or not, that's a little too uneasy for me. I don't really trust something like that for that long. That's why I want to get a camcorder or something small like a 1080p camera up there because I know that'll run all day, no problem. Okay, look at this. Have a good look. One is 6K, one is 4K, and two are only 1080p. Can you tell which is which? I think these are all acceptable for YouTube, and that is always my point. Here are the cameras. The one in the top right is the 1080p Samsung NX500 I made the last video about. Those colors are right out of the camera. The Blackmagic is on the bottom right, and I had to boost the colors. The Sony's pretty good though on the bottom left. Those are right out of the camera colors. The Canon C100 top left is also only 1080p. The color and contrast do need to be adjusted, but the color is great and I love this camera, which is why I have 3 of them. For this kind of stuff, all you need is 1080p. And I use some Micro Four Thirds cameras, which is an even smaller sensor. You really don't need big sensors with high resolution to have great videos on YouTube. And as you know, the file sizes are ridiculous when you shoot in 6K or even 4K sometimes. I like small and lightweight, including my file sizes. So the bottom line is you don't need a Zcam or a Blackmagic if you have a full frame camera like my Sony A7C, or you use 2 smaller 1080p cameras, each with a different lens. That's my bottom line solution to this. I don't really need these cameras. This one I'm going to return. I am not going to even try to give this away. This is too much of a learning curve. It's not a ready-to-use system. It's expensive. It's just not a fun camera to use. It's not easy to use. It's not that practical. So I'm going to return this and exchange it for a Sony FX6, which is a full-frame camcorder. You know how I am about camcorders. I love camcorders because they can run all day. They won't overheat. They're made for that. And we've already established that Sony full-frame is an amazing, sharp, beautiful, high resolution, ready to use the footage right out of the camera kind of thing, as opposed to something like this, which is just frustrating to work with. The Blackmagic, it's a great camera. It's really fun to use. It's really easy to use. They've really done some good thinking on making this user-friendly. I love that part of it. It's just not for me because I don't need the 6K. And the size, it's kind of awkward. The screen on the back isn't that great. I don't like the plastic dangly things on the side, the rubber stuff. The power cord is frustrating to work with. It's just not for me. I mean, it's sure it's perfect for someone else, so I'm going to give this away. To learn how to be in the running to get this, go to marcuspicksfreebies.com, and we'll pick the winner in a few days, and the thing will be out of my hair. You know, whatever they're talking about nowadays, the big, hyped up, new, bigger, powerful cinema cameras. Be a filmmaker with these big cinema cameras. You don't need big, giant 6K, 8K, 12K, 100K cameras to do your videos on YouTube. Just use a 1080p camera and make sure it's sharp and in focus and the colors are good and it's just interesting and well lit and the white balance is right. Just do it right. Just know your photography and you can do great video and pictures with anything. You can make it great videos and pictures with a camera that was from 100 years ago. You don't need the big fancy latest greatest things. And that's what I'm trying to show you here. So, all right, that's it for today. I hope I inspired you again, made you smile, laugh, whatever. I will see you in the next video.